My name is Jeremiah Croke, but folks around these parts call me the keeper of the Cove. I've lived in the bayous of Louisiana all my life, and I've seen things that would turn your blood to ice water. You city slickers probably think the swamps are just muddy waters and gnarled trees. But deep in the heart of the bayou, there's an ancient evil that's slumbered for centuries. An evil that feeds on the innocent. It started back when I was just a young too young and foolish to heed my pa's warnings about staying away from Miller's Cove after sundown, a place so steeped in darkness that even the bravest souls dare not tread there. But I didn't listen. Curiosity got the better of me one night, and I snuck out to the cove to see what all the fuss was about. As I pulled up in my rickety old boat, the fog hung so thick I could barely see the twisted willows on the bank. An uneasy quiet smothered the place, as if the whole swamp was holding its breath. I cut the engine and listened to the blood pounding in my ears, wondering if I'd made a mistake coming out here alone. That's when I heard it, a faint splashing from the shallows, like someone or something was thrashing in the water. I strained my eyes, trying to make sense of the shapes in the murky blackness, until I saw it. A long, pale arm breaking the surface, grasping at the air as if trying to pull itself onto dry land. My heart seized in my chest as more appendages erupted from the depths, boneless limbs twitching and coiling around one another in a sick, unnatural tangle. I watched in horror as a dripping, eyeless head broke through, its mouth opened wide in a silent scream. Rows of fangs glistening in the pale moonlight. That's when it spotted me. It let out an ungodly shriek that pierced right through me, chilling me to my core. Before I could react, its grotesque body was suddenly hurtling through the air straight towards my boat, twisted arms outstretched like a dozen gnarled tentacles. I slammed the engine into reverse and barely made it out of there with my life. I'll never forget the sight of that thing slamming against the hull, its jaws snapping wildly inches from my face. From that day on, I became the sworn protector of Miller's Cove. I started hearing stories from the old Cajun folks about the Lurker, an ancient swamp creature that preys on the young and the pure of heart. Some say it was born from a curse, others that it crawled from the blackest pits of hell itself. All I know is that it's real, and it's hungry. I try to steer people away from the cove best I can, board up the trails, slam up danger signs, even scare off thrill seekers by firing off warning shots into the air. Because once the lurker gets its bony tendrils around you, you're pulled into a nightmare from which there's no waking. I've heard the screams echoing across the swamp on nights when the moon is full and the fog lies low. Sweet, innocent cries for help quickly dissolving into shrieks of sheer terror. Sometimes in the early morning mist, I'll find pieces of them scattered along the banks. Little shoes, dolls, the tattered remains of a child's life. It takes all I have not to put a bullet through my own brain on nights like that. The guilt is almost too much to bear, knowing I couldn't save them from the lurker's gruesome hunger. All I can do is try to keep others from meeting that same fate. So heed my warning, folks. Stay away from the bayous after dark. Don't go poking around where you don't belong, because there are some evils in this world that were never meant to be understood, only feared. I am the keeper, tasked with guarding against an ancient horror that dwells within Miller's Cove. And as long as there's breath in my lungs, I aim to keep that horror at bay. No matter how many innocents must be sacrificed to its ravenous appetite. I can still hear the screams some nights when the swamp falls eerily silent. Piteous wails that set my hair on end and make my blood run cold. Just remembering the sheer terror in those cries is enough to keep me up at night. That's when the guilt and the what-ifs really start eating at me. What if I'd gotten there sooner? What if I'd warned them one more time about the dangers? Maybe just maybe I could have saved one more lost soul from a fate worse than death. But mostly I lay awake at night because of the fear. The bottomless, gut-churning fear that one day the lurker's gonna come calling for me. Ever since that first encounter at the Cove, it feels like it's had some sort of unholy mark on me. Like the stench of its rotten existence has seeped into my pores and cursed me for life. Some folks around here think I'm plumb crazy for standing guard over that forsaken place year after year. They ask why I don't just pack up and leave this godforsaken bayou for good. But they don't understand I can't leave. I've tried before, but it always pulls me back. Something in the murky depths just won't let me go. It started with the dreams a few years back. Twisted visions of the lurker reaching out with its bony claws, wrapping those sinewy tendrils around my body and dragging me down into the blackness. I'd wake up gasping for air, my sheets soaked through with a cold sweat. Then came the voices, whispering in the back of my mind. A slithery, ancient language that chilled me to the core. I couldn't make out the words, but the sheer malice in those growls made my skin crawl. I tried to ignore them, but they just kept growing louder and more insistent. These days I catch glimpses of the lurker out the corner of my eye, bobbing just below the surface like a drowned, swollen corpse. Watching waiting its dead eyes boring into me from the shadows. I know in my bones it wants to drag me down and make me part of its brood. Maybe that's my real penance to pay for not saving all those poor kids from its clutches. The lurker's never gonna let me leave this life until it's got me in its grasp, down in that inky, foul-smelling hell from which it crawled. And truth be told, part of me welcomes it at this point. I'm an old man now with nothing but regrets keeping me company most nights. What few friends and family I had are long gone, taken by the lurker or the hard toll of bayou life over the decades. These days it's just me and the Cove. Two tangled, rotten things caught in each other's web for eternity. So if you fools have any sense at all, you'll turn your citified rigs around and go back from wherever you came. Leave this forsaken place and never look back. Because the lurker is restless, and its hunger is growing ever more ravenous. And if you should be foolish enough to ignore my warning, well, I reckon you'll get to experience the lurker's vile embrace for yourself soon enough. Just don't say I didn't try to stop you from facing a fate worse than any nightmare.